Okay, everyone, Uncle Ted has given each one of you a gift. I've taken a sentence from your short version of your paper and revised it so that the quoting is really smooth, that it follows these four fundamentals of good quoting, that it's grammatically correct, it has flow. Not necessarily the same thing, those two. It's ethically sourced, it's accurate, and the formatting is correct. Please let me know, send me an email. For some reason, I've neglected to pick one of your sentences. I kind of was trying to get everyone in the class, and I started doing that kind of halfway through this process. And I kind of went back and tried to get a sentence from each person. So I'll read them, and then I may, if I can remember, mention some of the changes I made. But in other ways, I'll just kind of point out what's working with these sentences. So here we go. American Civil Liberties Union attorney Joshua Block came forward in response to the ban and declared the court decision a victory for transgender members across this country. And then that's where it comes from. It comes from Merrimount, 2017, para 4. So let's look at a couple little things here. One thing to always remember is that this, whatever is the first word in the citation, whether it's a name or the title of an organization, or sometimes it's going to be the title of an article or web page if there's no name, that's what's going to appear in the citation or the reference page at the end. So if I have a question about one of your sources, like I often did, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that reference page. I'm going to look for M. I'm going to look for that name, Merrimount. Okay. Let's do the next one. We've got some good information here. First clause states that, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No period there, as cited in Monk. Now, that means we don't want to make it sound like Monk wrote this, okay? Obviously, it's the 14th Amendment, and that was clear in the paper itself, so we have that there. But because it's cited in this book by Linda Monk, we're going to say as cited. And then I had to look up, the book was published in 2003, and it's on page 24. Notice the period is way at the end here, no period here. Sometimes it's really tempting for someone to want to put a period there. Okay, and this word that is really friendly to you. You almost never need a comma when you go right into a quote with the word that. I'll probably make a video on that later. It's actually worth making a video on. Next one. As stated by Prendergast, 2025, in Born in the USA, the 14th Amendment has consistently been upheld as a protection for the citizenship of any person born on American soil. Okay, you're going to see another version of this one down here, which is a little bit different. If you kind of don't like the look of the quote-unquote here, I mean, that's perfectly okay. But if somehow that you feel like that's not really nice on the eyes, you can do it this way. As stated in Born in the USA by Prendergast, comma, the 14th Amendment has consistently been upheld. Okay, you got that. Now, there's three things I'm always looking for: the author, the year, and the page or paragraph number. So you can sprinkle them around almost anywhere. The page or paragraph number always comes last, okay? But you see different examples where, like, here we have the name and the year in the actual sentence, and then we have the page number there. And here we have the year and the page number like this. So you can vary your ways of doing that, just so you know. Okay. All right, I'm going to show you something I did with this sentence. I added this little part here just to be transparent, just to be sort of honest. I had never heard of New America. The student used it as a source. It seems pretty legit. But as I was looking up New America and looking up this site, I was just like, well, I think I'm just going to mention, and I Googled it. I don't know this publication, but I found a reliable source that categorized this as left-leaning, okay? And that's just for the benefit of your readers. They want to know where the stuff is coming from. Otherwise, the whole according to blah, blah, blah is about as straightforward and easy as you can do. That's fine. You never want to do more than maybe sort of 2 or 3 of these in your paper, or maybe 2. But this, adding the left-leaning part gives it a little bit of extra flavor, I guess. It kind of lets the readers know that the writer is kind of involved a little bit more. The writer's participating, helping the reader understand the information. And here we go. According to the left-leaning New America, Trump's social media post and the administration's subsequent actions signal they may intend to treat protest and speech as illegal when it suits their ideological goals, regardless of where there is evidence of illegal activity. Okay, so that means the author was a person named Baker, who is writing in New America, and you can find it on paragraph 2 on the webpage. This is a nice quote. It's a well-chosen quote. The student, whoever got that, kudos to you. All these actually are really good. I wouldn't pick them otherwise. Okay, here's another way to introduce something. You can introduce the author's sort of book. It gives the reader a little more information. In her book, The Words We Live By, Your Annotated Guide to the Constitution, Linda Monk explains procedural due process under Amendment 5 as the following. Okay, we're using a colon here. That's one sentence, and this is another sentence. It's a full sentence. The government must follow fair procedures in both criminal and civil cases in order to safeguard the individual against the power of the state. Now, I don't need to put Monk here because I've got her over here. All right, and it's a page number. It's page 175. You can see down below, you can read it on your own time, that I worded this differently without the colon. Either of these are fine. It's just kind of a matter of taste, and it's good for you to be able to see both examples so that you can write both kinds of sentences, so that you vary your syntax is the word. Syntax means the order and arrangement of words in a sentence. Okay, and you don't want to have every quote have the same syntax because that gets really tiresome for the eyes and ears. You want to change things up a little bit. Okay. This is an interesting one. I'm going to pause here and take a little more time on this one because it looked like a really good source, but I just had a little trouble understanding what the student was trying to say in the original form. And then I looked up the source and I found out, this is what it's saying. So I changed things just a little bit. Here we go. A public health official from a large Midwestern city reported that the normal no-show rate of 15% has increased to more than 30%. Heisler et al. 2025, para 3. Et al. Means and others. It means there's more than like 2 authors. It's 3 or more. In your reference page in the bottom, at the end of your paper, you'd look up Heisler, and then it would have the other authors of this study. Okay, so that can kind of tell you it's probably scholarly if you have the et al. Because when you have multiple authors, they're almost always scholarly. And we can easily find it on para 3. Notice that para does have the period right there. I was actually questioning that too. I forget that sometimes. So if you see some of my bad examples, don't do what I do. Do as I say. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to show you something. This was the original sentence from the actual source. Now they spell terrorized with an S because they're British, and it's from the Lancet. So it goes like this: U.S. health professionals are already reporting such harms. In a personal conversation, okay, you got it. You can read it in your own British accent. But what I want to show you is how do I take this really good piece of information from the source and put it into my own sentence as a student, because it can be tough sometimes. And I'm telling you, I took some time with these. It took me a while to go find the article, find the paragraph, make sure I understand it really well. That's that ethical and accuracy piece, okay? Because there's an ethic to this, to getting it right, to not misquoting somebody, and then there's accuracy too. So, for example, the original sentence was, we have at most 15% no-show rate to doctor's appointments, and now that has more than doubled, okay? So what I did in my own words is I put this more than doubled, I said increase to more than 30%. So I'm being accurate, I'm being ethical, okay? Okay, here's the version. I've added this, Lancet Medical Journal. I don't think the student had that originally, I can't remember. But the Lancet is a well-respected medical journal. Now, if you don't know that, it's nice for the readers to know. I mean, if this was in the medical community, if you're writing for that discipline, then you wouldn't need to say medical journal, right? But for the lay people, we kind of like that. So here we go. And researchers are all these people, Heisler, okay? They definitely were doing research. Researchers for the Lancet Medical Journal were told by one health system physician leader from a large American city, quote, people are afraid to leave their house. There's your quote, okay? The person, this physician leader, was not named, I think because they were probably afraid of maybe retribution by the Trump administration or something like that, which is bizarre that you have to think about that in 2025 in America. But that's where we are. So that just kind of lets you know that I'm not being sloppy as the writer. I'm just, the name isn't given. Okay, here we go. Next one. Recent immigration research studies show that. Okay, here's the quote. I'm always sometimes a little worried about when you say one study or studies show. It's a little bit it's a little bit worrisome as the reader, because you're like, well, is this writer really gonna? Are they trying to snow me? Is this a snow job, or are they gonna really tell me where the research comes from? So as long as you actually say where it is, and I think this is it. I couldn't exactly tell from the student's reference page, but this would be fine. This would be ethical, and this would be accurate if you said recent immigration research studies and then you cited them down here. You're just so much better off if you can actually cite those studies. Okay. And this means there's two authors, you got a comma there. What year was it? So it's recent, but it's 2021. That's still pretty relevant. Okay, next one. The Migration Policy Institute states that Obama, what did he do? Quote, placed a much lower priority on removing. Okay, you guys can read that on your own. Now, one thing I want to point out about this is I probably should capitalize these. I did not. If it's an institute, so that's a mistake on my part. I want to tell you something about how to use punctuation around quotation marks. There's no automatic rule that you always put a comma in front of a quote. Some people think there is, but there's not. I'd use something called the pinky method. Okay, you got my pinkies here. Can you see them? 1, 2. I actually use my pinkies to cover. No, I won't really do that, but mentally I'll use my pinkies to cover the quotations and imagine they don't exist, and then tell yourself, would I put a punctuation mark there? Would I put a comma? Would I put a colon, semicolon? No, I wouldn't put anything. So if the answer is no, then the answer is nothing. There you go. And then same here. Okay, next one. This is interesting. The student is calling this a paper, which is proper language for academic papers. They're usually like longer, more involved, really well-researched, credible, scholarly journals. They call them papers. And here's the title of the paper. That's something you can do in your writing if you want, especially if the title seems really good. If the title is really revealing, include it. There's no rule that says you have to include the title of a paper or an essay or an article that you are sourcing. The only thing you have to do is you have to say the author if you have it, you have to say the year, and you have to say the page number if it's a particular statistic. You'll notice this one doesn't have the page number. That's because it's a general summary of the whole article. So according to the paper, quote, the evolving role of the state education agency in the era of ESSA and Trump, past, present, and uncertain future, by Joanne Weiss and Patrick McGuinn, 2017. And then here's your nugget, the U.S. Office of blah, blah, blah. By the way, these commas is comma rule, they follow comma rule number 4, which sounds like parentheses. So when you see 2 commas, that means it's setting a material off as though it's parentheses, okay? So it's kind of a long sentence, but basically all of it is just the title and just the kind of mechanics of trying to make sure we know who wrote, what that title was, the article, who wrote it, when they wrote it, and then your nugget of information, your summary is right here. Okay, next one. About 1,000 national parks employees were fired, many of whom were probationary employees, and this is from Gold Student Street on paragraph 6 of their web article. According to Bill Wade, the executive director of the Association of National Park Rangers, quote, the cuts at Mount Rainier included the park's only plumber. This one, I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time on this one, and it's not because the student did anything really wrong or anything. It's just that it was complicated. There's a lot of information, and it took me a while to make it sound smooth, and that's just how writing is. Notice again the use of these commas here. 2 commas. They say about commas that they either separate or they enclose. They never terminate and they never end a sentence. In this case, they enclose. They envelope this this phrase. And it's really good to know how to use those for English 102. All right, on to the next one. These look like they are 3 authors, and their last names are Pierce, Bolter, and Selly. In 2018, point out that while headline-grabbing policies like the travel bans drew outrage, quieter changes such as narrowing asylum eligibility and slowing down legal money, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Notice that these aren't in quotes, and